Sonic and Dragon Ball, two of the sauciest, most delectable series to ever grace God's beautiful green earth. I don't make the rules. It seems to be some universal constant that every 1 in 3 Sonic fans are also big into Dragon Ball. My source?
My source is that I made it the heck up.
There just seems to be something about the raw energy that both of these series have that seems to draw tons of people to the both of them. The characters, the stories, the fights, the women, the sensual yaoi scenes. There was really something for everyone to enjoy. And speaking of their great casts of characters, they both had such lovable protagonists in Goku and Sonic. Goku may have lost the favorite character spot in my mind to Trunks, but honestly it was mostly just because I liked swords a lot as a kid. But Sonic actually is my favorite character in that series, and I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. The only character that could contest him for that spot in any way is Shadow, another character I doubt anyone would be confused about others having as their number 1. I'd even say that Goku and Sonic are pretty alike in a few ways. They both live for a thrill, with one being for the fight and the other for adventure, and if I had to put them on the moral alignment chart, I think they both fit pretty nicely into chaotic good, and I will not explain further. Okay, I'll explain further. They're both natural do-gooders that follow what they believe to be right, but not so justice-based that they go around seeking out any and all evildoers in the world and putting a stop to them. More so just helping those in need along the way. They do as they please regardless of how others see it, but those actions are basically always good anyways, so we ball. I think it's that lovable zest for life that really draws people to these characters. But enough of that sappy stuff, because what we're really here to talk about are those moments of raw energy. Before I had the mental capacity to really appreciate the stories I was witnessing, my baby monkey brain was riding the high of seeing these characters just pop the hell off. I have vivid memories of watching those old Windows Movie Maker videos of people showcasing and ranking their transformations, some of which weren't even real, mind you, shout out to Super Saiyan 5, and even the occasional AMV. Legitimately, you do not know the hold that specifically Darkspine and especially Dark Sonic had on me as a child. I even had fan art of Dark Sonic and eventually Super Saiyan 4 Sonic as my profile pictures on Facebook for a while. But alas, at some point I started thinking my childhood stuff on there was cringy, so I deleted them. Forever lost to time. Except not entirely, because I can just search them up on Google. They're still there. I remember them. Also, slightly unrelated, but a big shout out to that early Sonic 06 video with the song Super Sonic over it, and making me think that that song was made just for the game. It was just pure fun to see the characters of these series power up and get into crazy brawls, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. Some of you might be thinking, hold on, I understand Dragon Ball characters going at it with each other, but how does Sonic fit into this? Isn't that a platformer series? Oh my sweet summer child, let me take you on a little journey here. Open your mind to a world you might have never known existed. A world of pure sauce and chaos, dare I say? Please don't kill me, I'll never do it again. I'm lying, I will do it again. Humor me for a few minutes while I tell you my little history with these two fellas. I swear it's important to not me just yap it for yap's sake. I believe I ran into Sonic first through Ultimate Flash Sonic on my OG game site, GamePapa.com. That was before I understood the concept of fan games since I was, 4 years old. So I thought that game was legit and I loved playing it over and over again. I ran into Dragon Ball around the same time, but I'm gonna be honest, I actually don't recall how I came to know it initially. I live in Canada, so I didn't have any channels that would show it on cable at the time, and I would constantly lament not having any of the channels that would show it, and shows like Sonic X, like in the good old US of A. Damn America and their JetXs and Cartoon Networks. Why'd we have to get the scraps so many years later, goddammit? Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I just learned about Dragon Ball through photosynthesis or something, and my love for it just grew from there. After the canon events of just knowing it exists, I'd start watching Dragon Ball Z Kai episodes online, clips on YouTube, and whatever OG Dragon Ball DVDs I could find at the library, and whichever ones would actually work. Just like I would with Sonic. Once I got a bit older at the grown age of 8 years old, I'd start playing more official games from both series, through completely official means every single time. This was even around when I first ran into Dragon Ball Z Abridged, for better or for worse. But along with those real games came me finally beginning to understand what the hell a fan game actually was, coinciding with my discovery of two websites in particular, YoYo Games and especially Newgrounds. Now, to speak of YoYo Games, I first have to confess something. This, in fact, was not my first YouTube channel, fellas. I made my first one also when I was 8 years old, actually. A whole 15 years ago, Jesus Christ. I got locked out of the email I used to sign into, so I just could never make it back in. So I made a new one just a year after I lost the first one, in June of 2013. A few videos I made back then, including my very first one, were on one of the main Sonic fan games that I played over and over again, Sonic FGX. This was also before I was made aware of things like Hypercam and Bandicam, so I just used to record my monitor and my DS with my webcam as I played. It didn't look great, as you can imagine, but I had a dream, damn it. A dream to show the world 144p gameplay with several black bars being caught on the monitor by the webcam. And also how to download these games through, again, very legal means, apparently. I played this game to death, and while Ultimate Flash Sonic was my first time playing a Sonic fan game, Sonic FGX was my first real step into the world of fan games, now that I actually knew what the hell they were. Third grade brain really saved me. I was still using GamePawPaw.com at this time, however, and despite it being a pretty rinky-dink site, funnily enough, it was actually here that I played the game that led me down the road to Newgrounds, Sonic RPG, Episode 6 specifically. Now this is where that Dragon Ball essence in Sonic really started to flourish in my mind. While this episode of the game specifically didn't really feature Sonic at all, focusing on Tails instead actually, it really expanded my horizons by putting an idea in my head. Sonic characters can fight? This was also one of those games that really kicked my ass due to not exactly being the best at games just yet, and this also might have been my introduction to turn-based RPGs in general, so I was trying to grasp the concept of how it works in the first place. This game had two battles, one against Mecha Sonic and another against Eggman's big ol' final boss bird thingy from Sonic and Knuckles. Sonic 3 and Knuckles if you're fancy. The Mecha Sonic fight was pretty easy, I don't think I ever lost to that punk, but this version did not have the sauce that he had in a certain other series. It was the fight against Eggman that beat me so badly. You had to use some semblance of a strategy instead of just using brute force like you could with Mecha Sonic, and it took me a good while to be able to finally beat him, and I felt so accomplished when I did. You don't understand, stuff like that made you feel like a god as a kid, untouchable even. That is, until you face basically anyone older than you in any game, just to be humbled once again. Not me though, because I grew up to be a top tier gamer, and you can't fact check that. But it was also after I beat the game that I really took in the F6 part of the title, realizing that it meant episode 6. So I was wondering, well, if this is the 6th episode, I gotta play the other ones too. So I scoured the website for the other titles, but nothing else was there. So instead I hopped on Google and searched the game name, and that's when I found it. The holy grail of my early childhood, Newgrounds. I hopped on there to play all the other episodes, from 1 to 8 at the time, But it wasn't just this series that I found there. There was another Brothers series that I found there, the Final Fantasy Sonic X series. Now, before I go any further here, I just wanted to pay tribute to the creator of Final Fantasy Sonic X, Rob Lewis, also known as BlackDevilX, as he unfortunately passed away on vacation from a heart attack just a few hours ago as of me writing this, on December 18th, 2024. His sister was the one to share the unfortunate news of his passing, and if she sees this, just know that my and everyone's hearts go out to you and the rest of his family and friends. I want you all to know just how much this man inspired many of us and created so many great childhood memories for us all. I may not have known him personally at all, but his works were truly endearing to me and countless others, and this was more than enough for me to feel genuine pain and shock at hearing the news. May he rest in peace, knowing he touched the hearts of many aspiring kids and teens everywhere. Now, originally, I had played episode 5 of this series offsite as well, and just like with my first attempts with Sonic RPG episode 6, that game beat my ass, dog. I was a bit older by then, the grown age of 8.5 now, but it took me forever to beat that head-ass True Guardian. To a foolish little boy like me, that guy was a true menace, and it took me a damn good while to figure out how to beat him. Just not as long as it took me with Eggman in Sonic RPG Episode 6, since I had at least some experience with RPGs now. Also, you know what? Just going further, I'm going to abbreviate Sonic RPG to just SRPG, and Final Fantasy Sonic X to FFSX. Make things easier for myself. Now, finding out that all the episodes to both of these series were on Newgrounds was a godsend to me. Before I opted to search for the FFSX series on there though, I was just a Newgrounds denizen, playing random games and watching random animations, especially the Sonic related ones. The only thing with that is, well, it was a bit of a mixed bag of things. Some things that I definitely wasn't supposed to be seeing at an age that I didn't even know what puberty was yet. But mostly good, proper things for a kid to indulge in. Maybe just a little bit racist and sexist at times though. It was just the name of the game back then. But, hey, enough of my side yapping here. Back to the front yapping. Because these two series were some of the biggest reasons that I started to equate Sonic and Dragon Ball more and more in my mind. Instead of seeing them as two completely different series with two completely different ideals, I started to see the things that they shared. And most importantly, how these new fellas could brawl. Seeing these Sonic characters throwing hands, flying around, dare I say at supersonic speeds, using transformation after transformation, and especially shooting energy blasts and essentially Kamehamehas? Like, bro, this was some of the coolest shit my kid brain had ever seen. I'm surprised it didn't implode. Plus bonus points to FFSX for having the genius idea of giving Sonic a goddamn Buster Sword. Cause like I said, I was just a big fan of characters with swords, doubly so if it was giants. The mileage that all of these guys and several others got out of these Sonic Battle and Advanced sprites, DBZ sound effects, and Marvel vs. Capcom cannon and laser sprites is just incredible. Sonic Team made a gold mine with those sprites and just never went back to it. And seeing the incredible improvement in all aspects amongst both of these series with each entry is honestly really heartwarming to see. These guys just playing around with Flash to create their fanfictions with greater and greater quality every time. Some may have had Wattpad and AO3 for their fanfictions, but the other side of the coin made sprite animations and fan games to see who could beat whose ass better, and these guys were a part of the latter. At the time of me playing them as a kid, the creme de la crop of each series was episode 8 of SRPG and episode 6 of FFSX. Now remember, only 8 episodes of SRPG and 6 episodes of FFSX were out at the time, so it makes perfect sense that the latest entries would be the most refined. But god damn, I don't even care. I played these entries the most over and over again ad nauseum, and I loved it. It was when the gameplay of each series was at its peak for the time. They upped their fight choreography, added voice acting into the mix in the case of FFSX, SRPG did that a bit earlier, and made their fights feel more like a proper challenge and less like a scripted event. Their most ambitious entries back then for sure. Plus, to no one's surprise, the Anime as Hell Sonic fan games had anime songs in them, and I loved them. I didn't know where any of them came from at the time, and some of them I still didn't this whole time, until I went back to these series now, because I did not read the credits as a child. But man, was it a flashbang to my mind when I started watching non-Brotherhood Fullmetal Alchemist just a couple years after I first played these games, and I was like, oh, that's the Final Fantasy Sonic song, X5 specifically. Or when I started watching Bleach from episode 1 in 8th grade and ran into not one, but 2 Bleach songs that I recognized from the games. One from each series actually. SRPG 8 had the 4th opening song as its intro, while FFSX 6 had the 15th ending song as its outro song. The shock and nostalgia I was punched in the gut with when I heard those was astounding. Painful, but astounding. Oh, and just another little thing from FFS6 that I thought was pretty clever was to have Sonic and eventually Tails and Knuckles go through what they call the advancement program to shift him from his classic sprites in Sonic 3 and Knuckles into his modern sprites from the Advance and Battle games. A funny guy he was. And Silkadoom from SRPG was so rad to me, I thought this man was unstoppable, just so damn cool. I had no concept of OCs yet, so I didn't realize that both Aeon and Silkadoom were just edited versions of the original characters. I got onto that a lot later in life than I'm willing to admit. And like I said before, both creators and their teams really improved the craft with each entry. FFSX6 unfortunately never got to come out in its entirety, but from the snippets that we got to see, it was looking really good. SRPG 9 and 10 did eventually come out, however. It took a little while, but we did eventually get the last 2 episodes of the series. 9 was a pretty big departure gameplay-wise from the previous entries, opting for a brawler combat system over the turn-based RPG system it used, but the biggest standout for this entry was the animation, in my humble opinion. This was the first entry since very early on in the series to use drawn animations in it. And the improvement from, say, episode 1 to this one is insane. Episode 10 takes this animation style and improves on it further, using it for the intro, outro, and cutscenes, while also returning to the turn-based RPG system for the combat, just with the real-time factor added into it, like Chrono Trigger for example. And instead of the supersonic that we were used to seeing throughout the series, we got to see him turn hyper for this finale, all with new sprites to boot. The final games in each series were truly impressive. Another rest in peace to BlackDevilX though. I really do hope he knows what kind of lasting impression his series had on others. Both of these series is truly. These were both Sonic fan games with very obvious anime influence. One of the biggest of course being Dragon Ball, but this influence didn't just stop at fan games. Fan animations also almost always had this on lock too, and 2 of the most famous were also found on Newgrounds. Man, Newgrounds really was a hotspot for this stuff, huh? And the 2 fan animations I'm going to talk about are Super Mario Bros. Z by Alvin Earthworm Entertainment and Nazo Unleashed by Chakra X. Now for those of you who haven't seen either of these series before, you might be wondering like, hey, so what's the story like in these? What are they about? Well, allow me to explain. Y'all are thinking wrong mindset here, buddy. The story doesn't matter here, fellas. We're here for the slugfest. And don't be fooled by the name of Super Mario Bros. Z either. Sonic and Shadow are just as integral to the plot there as Mario and Luigi are. However, there's also one character in particular that owes practically all of their aura and sauce to this one series, Mecha Sonic. This man was on a generational run in this series, La Jesus. He was tearing through everybody like it was just another day of the week. It was actually insane. But hey, that's not to say that everyone else was slacking, not in the slightest. Legitimately, the creativity and choreography in these are still incredible even by today's sprite animation standards, I'd say. And this was nearly 2 decades ago. The combos that Sonic, Shadow, Mario, and Luigi were pulling off were genuinely incredible to watch. But look at them go, man! Then over in Nazo Unleashed, instead of sprite animations, we've got the drawn works of YoYo. A bit of backstory here though. Nazo's design was based on a character that appeared in the first Sonic X teaser trailer. Supposedly it was actually Super Sonic though, so I don't know what the hell happened over there, especially since actual Super Sonic was also in the same trailer, but I digress. But the thing here is, this was way back in the early 2000s. The internet was nothing like it is now, and nowhere near as on top of rumors as we are now. That's why so many gaming rumors and creepypastas were able to flourish, because it was so much harder to verify. So people just ended up having fun with this baby blue fella, dubbing him Nazo at some point in time, and YoYo opted to use said design for his Sonic Ball Z creation. And for this series, he basically became the equivalent of Omega Shenron, a being born from the negative energy of the Master Emerald, just like how the Shadow Dragons were born from the negative energy of the Dragon Balls. And like I said before, this whole production is essentially one big slugfest, story be damned. This man Nazo shows up, steals the Master Emerald, flies around stealing the other Chaos Emeralds, blows up a city, and proceeds to just clown on the entire cast. Tails and Knuckles get straight up punked, I'm not gonna hold you, for the most part. So this is really just a Sonic and Shadow show, and they were throwing hands. We got these mans doing those classic clashes that Dragon Ball characters always do, jetting back and forth, sending these new fellas to space before slamming them down, shooting energy blasts and Kamehamehas, beam clashes, and what was one of the coolest damn things to me as a kid. So cool that I had this character and Nazo as my wallpaper for a good while. They even had Sonic and Shadow fuse into their Gogeta equivalent, Shattuck. Hyper Shattuck at that. Yeah, that's right. After Sonic and Shadow get punked for the umpteenth time by now, the now powered up Nazo, yeah, he ends up evolving, kinda like Sin Shenron to Omega. They awakened the Chaos Emeralds into the Super Emeralds through sheer willpower alone, and then immediately fused into Hyper Shattuck. They didn't even need to use a fusion dance either. They both just had such strong Himothy energy that they just fused off of principle. Nazo ended up getting totally worked after they did that. Even after absorbing the negative energy of the Super Emeralds, he still couldn't stop them fellas. Fully. In one final gambit, they got to that beam clash that I mentioned before. Nazo throwing his mega, big, black blast, and Shattuck absorbing rings from all around the world to shoot one super powered Kamehameha. And when it seemed like Nazo was going to take the dub against them, Tails and Knuckles finally locked in, powered up to their hyper forms and knocked this man Nazo right into the Kamehameha that Shattuck was shooting. Pure cinema. Shattuck wasn't even done with him yet too. It seemed like he got eviscerated from the blast, but they find him in some sort of extra dimensional plane made from the negative energy that he came from. And they entered that and wiped this man from existence again. Shattuck are actually the goats, dog. Or the goat? I don't know if they go by he, him, or they, them, dog. It's not like I can ask them. Now I'm going to keep it 100 with you fellas. Out of all the productions I've gone over in this video, these are probably the most overtly DBZ inspired works out of everything that I mentioned. Everything had its own level of inspiration from Dragon Ball of course, but they also had others from anime in general. These ones were practically putting the essence of Goku and Vegeta into Sonic and Shadow and having them just go to town. They lived for the fight, dog, and they could handle themselves damn well. But you know, beyond just the desire for slamming our action figures together, what could have possibly been the inspiration for so many people to add Dragon Ball qualities to Sonic characters? What could have possibly made people think of mixing these two beautiful beings together? Well, personally, there's one Sonic game in particular that I think is the root cause for this. Sonic Battle. This game right here, I don't care how you think of it quality wise, and I don't care if you like it or not, none of that matters here. Cause no matter what, there's one absolute fact here, and that's that these sprites from these games carried sprite animations, dog. Man, look at me saying carried like it's past tense. No, these sprites are still carrying Sonic sprite animations. The Sonic Advance sprites get work in here too, for sure. But when it came to the fights themselves, which were a lot of the ones that I saw, it was the battle sprites that understandably got the most use. Plus, beyond just the actual sprites themselves, battle led to a lot of ideas for how the characters would even fight in the first place. Like, dog, you don't know how excited I was to get the Shadow story every time I played this game. Not only because the story itself was actually pretty dang good, but because it meant it was time for my boy Emerald to start learning the raddest moves in the game. Shadow's moveset was just beautiful. Have this man dive kicking, teleporting before blowing you up with a chaos blast, snapping homing chaos energy into existence. Like, god damn, did this man have sauce. Shadow wasn't the only character to have that kind of sauce, but I'm kind of biased to Shadows, okay? Leave me alone. And unrelated, but even though she was nowhere near my favorite character, apparently there's a common consensus that the strongest character in the game is actually Cream. Cream the Rabbit. Do with that information what you will. I played Sonic Battle for the first time just about a year or so after I found Newgrounds, and its multitude of MapleStory ads. And they worked on me, let me tell you. And you know what? I'm asking any of y'all that haven't played the game before to play it. I'm making it a law for everyone to play at least 1 hour of the game, or you'll be fined $1,000. All fines will be paid to me, of course. This game ain't perfect. It does hit a bit of a slog in some areas, but no joke, the story of it is amazing, and the game's pretty damn fun to me at least. Consider it a studying session for where all these sprites you see all the time came from. But the thing is, at least in terms of fighting sauce, we were kinda in the trenches for a good while after this, cause this game didn't get a sequel. But a very recent game revitalized that kind of action. The raw energy that these sprites inspired in the masses. And that game is Sonic Frontiers. Specifically, all the Titan boss fights, and especially the fight against the End in the Final Horizons DLC. We ain't really talking about the rest of the game this time around. I'm speaking purely about the combat and the boss fights sauce-wise. And on that front, they absolutely delivered here. I mentioned in one of my previous videos, but I made sure to play Frontiers as blind as possible, and that was hard since I got the game like half a year later. And when I got to those Titan fights, woo, boy was it amazing. I said there as well that I hadn't really felt that kind of hype for a Sonic boss fight since the final boss of Sonic and the Black Knight, personally. And these were far beyond that too. They gave Sonic some proper fighting moves in his base, zigzagging throughout the air before dashing right into you, blasting you with a barrage of energy slashes, and slashing through enemies like a mother flippin' blade. All of which were only enhanced when he went Super Sonic. Even his basic attacks had the added effect of creating giant energy punches and kicks. But beyond the combat, a lot of the energy that these fights bring come from the QTEs and cutscenes. They just had so much power in them that I genuinely don't blame the people who said that it made them feel like a kid again, cause god damn it, me too, man. Brought me right back to the same days of Newgrounds that I've been talking about this whole time. It's fun to just see Sonic characters duke it out like they're Dragon Ball characters. That quick segment of Super Sonic 2 blitzing the ever-loving heck out of the End before hitting that aura farming pose went double platinum on Twitter the day the DLC came out. And can you really blame them? It's just so cool. And hell, why do you think people took to calling him Super Sonic 2, even after we found out its official name? Cause it wasn't cause of no One Piece, no sir. That's Dragon Ball's doing. Sonic's cool as hell, and Dragon Ball's cool as hell. But put together, they become cool squared. The people love seeing Sonic characters just pop the hell off, and I genuinely hope that we can get more of this in future games. And if Sonic Frontiers and Shadow Generations told us anything, it's that we might be on the right damn path for that right now. What I'm really trying to say here is, the people need Sonic X Dragon Ball Lost World. Wake up, Sega!